What's up, lemon heads? Welcome back to another episode of From the Yellow Chair. I'm Emily.
And I'm Crystal.
And this week, we're going to get into the details of digital, talking some paid ad strategy. I know with Lemon Seed, this is one thing that drives our contractors crazy. They don't understand the digital world and all the uniqueness that comes with the tracking. It can be so overwhelming.
Absolutely. Digital right now, I feel like it changes faster than gas prices at our local gas station
Mm.
because, they're kind of in like a little match right now, to see who's doing better. But it's forever changing. And, it's just so hard to track it and keep up with it easily. A unique way to think about digital is how we do branding ads versus what a lot of us are used to, which is like call to action. You first thing you start thinking is, oh, I got to have this really cool offer. So we are going to get down into the details with some great guests here in our digital, or I should say virtual, my bad. Digital is on my mind right now, but
Well, we're about to get into it.
our virtual lemonade stand. So can't wait to geek out on this topic. So let's sip some lemonade.
Let's do it. All right. So when we talk about a brand, a lot of times we think about actual tangibles like the logo, the truck wraps, signage, mascot. But we have some digital vendor friends here sipping some lemonade, and they're going to talk about digital strategy for your brand.
I love to protect the brand. So a lot of times when we're talking about brand, I'm always like, okay, how are we going to protect it from being don't vary too much from where you naturally want to be. Right? So if you are the friendly, easygoing company, then be the friendly, easygoing company with your offers and with your wording and with all of those things. So joining us today is actually someone I was on another podcast and he and I got to talking on this podcast, and we were like, we should do a podcast together about these things. So joining us today, we have some new vendor friends that we've just come to meet. So we have Steven and Ryan from the Wit Digital team, correct?
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for having us on.
Yeah. So Wit team, tell us a little bit.
Yeah. So Wit Digital is a digital agency primarily focused on SEO, paid media, paid advertising, and website design and development. Each of those goes a little bit deeper, but we focus primarily on home service businesses. When I started this agency in 2014, on the heels of selling a previous agency that I had started in 2009, we started to get a couple home service contractors and we started to get involved in some of these groups. And I just really loved working with owners of home service businesses. It was really fun. It was an underserved industry at the time. But we had a great time working with them. I love the fact that for the most part, they love giving back to their community. So we felt like, hey, we can make an impact on a business that can also make an impact on their direct employees and then those families, and then also on the local community. And so we went really deep and we niched down solely to doing this now. So we're a paid digital agency or a digital agency that does only home service.
I mean, that's exciting. We kind of feel the same way. We talk about this all the time about how exciting it is to help not just the contractor, but how all of that just flows throughout their entire, not only their team, but their personal families and their communities and things like that. And
Absolutely.
it's kind of corny, but it's the truth. You just get really, really excited about that opportunity. So what about you? What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, so I'm the director of client strategy at WIT. I've been here since 2018. I came from more of an agency background where it was multiple industry, more of a robust, holistic approach to marketing solutions. Came on board with WIT. Actually, kind of took the reins down a little bit and came on and learned how to do SEO hands on, and then kind of moved my way up through the ranks. And as I did that, I turned into a client strategist. And then we're like, oh, okay, well, let's do the director. And that we have a team of client strategists that really gets with the business owner and understands what is your growth goal, what is your market going to provide you? Are those in line with each other, and can we actually do this? And being able to do that and have those conversations and speak bluntly, when we don't agree with something that maybe they think about doing, is really a breath of fresh air for us to be able to say, hey, don't do that, or do that because it's right for the client, not right for our bottom line. So it's really a great approach to overall marketing to do that with the home service industry.
Oh, very, very true. Absolutely. Well, I think we're gonna jump in here. So most contractors, I hate to break this to you, but they hate digital marketing.
Yep. They probably
They
hate
hate it.
marketing in general, but they really hate digital
And
marketing.
I think they mostly hate just writing the check in general.
Yeah.
But I think it's because, and I argue this all the time, it's just from lack of understanding.
Well, and it's always changing, so, like, how can they really get a grasp on it, you know?
Yeah, and I just tell them, this is a necessary evil in your life. So
Yeah.
we can embrace it. And we need to find you the right digital partner that speaks your love language, right? So some people don't want to get all down in the details. Some people want to know every click and impression and conversion that happens on minute by minute. And then other people are like, oh, yeah, I haven't asked my digital vendor in 6 months what I'm doing. So I better check in. So there's just a wide range of that. But I think that if we can just kind of knock down some walls, like, I'm a big proponent. I think need to know enough to check and validate, but get out of the way of the professionals. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't go to school to do digital marketing. I don't actually get inside of, like, I don't Google Marketplace or whatever the name of it is. I don't
Or
want
yeah, yeah.
I don't get what I do? I sit there and we strategize and we have a plan. We know where we need to get. We know what new customer acquisition looks like. We know that we're willing to spend the money. We know what kind of market we're in. And now we're like, here, Wit, tell us what to do with this. And then we need to let y'all roll out and do your thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
so
I know enough to know my HVAC system needs its filter changed, but I'm not going to, and I'll change the filter. But if it's not improved after that, it's beyond me, right? So I don't try to pretend I know more than I actually do. And, I think marketing is one of those things that's so integral and changing, like you said at the beginning of the show. It's just a moving target, and to expect the home service business owner to be able to keep the eye on the target and be able to hit bullseye every time is unrealistic.
Well, and we know that everybody hates digital marketing vendors, and for the most part, rightfully so, because most of them are terrible, right? And it's not that they're well, yeah, this is interesting, right? So it's not that they're actually all necessarily terrible at delivering the product, because there's a lot of them that are really great at delivering the digital marketing product, the SEO, the rankings, the website traffic, the paid traffic. But where the big disconnect starts to come is that, Crystal, like with what you guys do, it's actually starting to understand where is the ROI in what they're spending. And then once we start to understand where the ROI is, we can start to understand where the actual breakdown is, right? A lot of digital agencies, oh, I sent you all this traffic, I sent you all this, but they have no clue really quite how many phone calls they sent, but they really have no clue on how many of those phone calls, let's see, got answered, got the answering service versus a daytime CSR that's going to have a higher conversion rate. Or hey, which of the paid ad campaigns is actually turning into the highest literal ROI dollar wise? So now we can shift more budget there, and that's one of the big, I think, missing pieces. Is there's people aren't looking at enough of that stuff, and that's one of the cool things that I love about Wit. Like, we pay attention to that ROI. We look in our clients' CRMs, and then we make decisions based on real data. So I get it that most people don't like digital marketing, because it's like, wait, I spent all this money, but it doesn't feel like I'm getting anything. And that's like with you guys.
sure, it's
It's
easier to pass the blame on the digital company if you're not digging into, "Oh, well, they actually did make the phone ring. It was just my team who
yeah.
didn't answer the phone or couldn't sell the lead," all of those
We've
things.
straight up had a contractor say, "Well, my CSRs go home at 3:30, and the answering service or my answering." One day, somebody said my answering machine, and I said, "Time out. Now listen. No, we've got some major improvements we need to make if we're, like, literally running a machine here." So and a lot of it is, again, not understanding the importance of quick interaction and turnaround times. We live in a time of instantaneous gratification.
Sure.
When people say they need service, whether it be 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the morning, by God, somebody better answer me
Well, they're not
because,
gonna wait on you to call them back. They're already calling the next guy, okay?
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, that's true.
So, what is kind of the foundation of a paid ad strategy? Because we're past talking just having a website and having a Google business profile. We're talking about actually spending some money on ads. So, what's some guidance that you guys can give us to develop that strategy?
I think that's a really good question. Paid ads is a real general term, or paid strategy is a general term, because you got to pay for traditional media too. So if we're talking paid digital strategy, the foundation of paid digital strategy is going to be at the top of the funnel. It's going to be like display, retargeting, targeted mobile ads. We use third-party data to target people based on intent. So if they've shown intent for HVAC or plumbing or electrical services, so we can then target them with that. The world is changing in regards to how we can target people now, though. So we rely a little bit more on first-party data that we derive from CRM platforms like Service Titan to build lookalike audiences based off the clients that our customers are using and go after clients that look like them. So we use third and first party data to reach the right people at the top with display, retargeting, and even social media ads. It used to be that social media was used for lead gen. It's just not anymore. I don't use lead gen in my strategies or social media as a lead gen platform in my overall strategies. I use it as a branding platform.
Mhm.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
simply to drive brand message. I do not want to disrupt that end users experience on social media. I don't want to make it worse. I
Yeah.
want to either keep it the same or make it
Amen.
better. Right? Yeah.
Look,
You don't want to
if you were
see that.
preaching right now, I'd be, like, testifying for you, like,
Dude, I'm telling you, how
they
many
have
times you scroll faster when you see the AC offer,
yeah,
and
you're just unrealistic expectations to think that you're really gonna get a lot of conversion. Now somebody is right now, like, spinning on their head, like, "We get great conversions from social media." I'm not saying that there's not an anomaly that works well, but as a general rule of thumb, I would stick to branding as well on social, not only in your posting, but also on your paid strategy.
absolutely. And I tend to want to maybe talk less about the services that I offer and more about what I'm doing good to the community, what I'm doing good within my four walls with my own team. Those types of things make the homeowner feel good to end up doing a Google search 6 months down the road that, oh, an unconscious recognition, but a recognition nonetheless, right? And
Well,
Mm.
you've just more won their hearts more so than trying to win their pocketbooks immediately, and that's why people are on social media, to be social, not to be sold to.
right. And for us, it's the Simon Sinek about the why, right? We market for the why. Why are we marketing for these companies? Because they want to do better for the community. That's why most of these home service businesses are in business because they love where they work, they live, and they want to service everybody. If you talk to 90% of these guys, are going to have the same type of passion behind it, right? And so, but going back to your original question, what makes the overall dynamics or I guess the foundation of a good paid strategy? And it's going to be display or programmatic at the top. That includes like pre-roll video, YouTube video, connected TV, even streaming audio. So just programmatic as a general term at the top is really important for a paid strategy. And then your SEM, so your search engine marketing, right? So your local service ads from Google, your PPC, obviously, your organic listings and your map listings. Right, all that stuff is super important. I call it real estate on the search engine results page or the SERP. You got to own as much real estate on the SERP, and you need to own real estate off the SERP to maintain brand affinity as you move through the years of your campaign. So those are the really major components. So branding, differentiating, converting are the overall components of a paid strategy.
Yeah, and, again, this is where people get lost. So, what happens is they'll call and say, "Well, I only have $1,500 a month." And, all of us probably take a collective sigh like, "Oh, that's just not enough." As much as you don't wanna bust their bubble, you're like, "That's not r" It's enough, kinda, if you wanna choose one thing to focus on. Like, I'm gonna choose just this tactic. But sometimes it's kinda disheartening when you're like, "Hey, you know what? I really need $8,000 a month. I need $15,000 a month so that we can hit your goals." And it's always just
Well
trying to figure it out.
well, and part of it is they've probably just had no exposure to this at
Yeah,
all. Like, they have
guidance.
no clue. Like, 1,500 sounds like a lot maybe,
Yeah, yeah.
but so you have to rely on these experts to kinda help you put a frame of reference, but for you guys to even do that, you have to know what is their end goal? How many leads are they looking to drive? How much revenue are they looking to drive? So that you can work it backwards to build a budget.
Yep, absolutely. So I need to know the growth goal. I have to also know what that market's going to be able to provide. So 1,500 bucks in, let's just talk PPC because we all kind of know PPC, right? So 1,500 bucks in Tulsa is going to perform a lot differently than for an AC company than it is in Phoenix, right? And so Phoenix very competitive. It's not going to go very far. It's not going to go anywhere. But 1,500 bucks in this really small community, maybe Tulsa's even too big, super small. Like just think of like your local township, something
Like
like
Lufkin, Texas.
might
Yeah,
work,
what's the
but most of these guys aren't looking to do that, right? They want to grow exponentially year over year. They're going from 3 million to 8 million to
yeah,
15,
with a 3% marketing budget there, Ryan.
right? And so we need to understand what is your goal. We need to take 5 to 10% of that revenue goal and put it towards marketing. And if you really want to grow, you need to be on the latter half of that, 7 to 10%.
which is right in line with what we preach. It's right in
Yeah,
line. I mean, normally, if I can just get contractors to hover at that 8, that's normally where I shoot
uh,
for, and then if I can get somebody real aggressive, we'll go to 10, and
right.
that 10%, what scares them is that it's off their projected revenue for the year. So, sir, if you're wanting to do 15,000,000, then we need to be aggressively going towards 15,000,000, not what you did last year. That was you already did that.
Right.
I'll get you a t-shirt that says I hit,
Yeah.
that last year.
Yeah.
We got to be thinking forward, right? We got to be
And
moving in that direction.
we meet quarterly with our partners to reassess that trajectory, right? Because it changes. A lot of these go, oh, we want 20% in January, and we get to the end of March or beginning of April, and they're trending towards 40% year-over-year growth. So we need more if you want to stay on this trajectory. Or if you don't, we can do X percentage amount to gain X percentage more. There's ways of doing it, but you always have to have your finger on the pulse on that and keeping that marketing budget on an economy of scale with your growth. Otherwise, you're going to end up flattening out. You're like, what the heck's going on? I keep spending my money, but it's not generating as much leads as it used to.
So if a client came to you guys and said, "Okay, look, what are like some of the top I don't where do we start? What are like the digital basics? Like everybody needs to kind of have at least these things in place," which I think you kind of hit at that, but being very specific. So I'm going to assume GLSA, Google Local Service Ads, I think is a no-brainer right now. And then do y'all feel that PPC is kind of in that structure?
I do. I think, again, I'll go back to what I said before: own as much real estate on the SERP as possible. So that includes every paid position and every organic position.
So, I show this to my clients all the time, and they're very perplexed by this. If you just pull up, search, go to your desktop. Uh-oh. But go to your desktop or go to your mobile, and just type in AC repair near me, no matter where you live. The whole top of that is almost all paid, if not all paid. So you got GLSA on top, and then PPC, and then normally the map pack, right? And did I hear the map pack is decreasing, right?
Yeah, and
How
so
many?
some markets it is. The closer you are to California, the more likely it is to be the smaller version.
Okay, so good
They
for
test
Texas. We're in the
things.
middle.
They test things. They test things, and some markets will still have three or more. Some of them will have more. I've seen 4 and 5 packs before.
Yeah, and see,
So
that's
Google's just
crazy.
like you said at the beginning of the show. It's just a moving target, man. You just never know, but you can count on 3 as a consistent number there.
Okay, so then that's the map, and then, after that, start getting into, like, just the organic strategy that you have going on, and then everything I call the rest of these tactics, like, icing on a cake, like, then you can start kinda picking and choosing, what do you wanna do? Is it this retargeting? Is it social media branding? Is it I just feel like there's kinda these core components that we need, just to be operationally efficient. And then we start, depending on where you're at next with budget and all kinds of other things, starts what you do next. I think it's level 2 that's where super customized.
And I think the
Yeah,
infrastructure, like you kind of talked about before. Sorry, Steven, I didn't mean to
no, go
talk.
ahead.
The infrastructure isn't going to infrastructure is actually on the organic side before it is even at the paid level. Like your Google business profile and your SEO needs to be on its way, right? Those are
Mhm.
the first things you need to do when you open a business. Is you need a website. You need to apply general maintenance to it. Even if you pay your local guy $750 a month to do light SEO, it's better than nothing. And get your Google business profile dialed in. Then the next piece that you need to do is what you just kind of rattled off with the Google local service ads, PPC, and that kind of stuff is kind of the next step, in my opinion. Because if you don't have that organic and the Google business profile footprint, you're kind of I guess jumping out of the plane without a parachute there.
Well, I wanna take one step back, and this is a little off subject of paid ads for just half a second, but you said something, and I have a couple of clients that are struggling with this. I had a client call us and say, "I wanna change my website vendor." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, let's talk a little bit." She goes, "Well, I've never paid for SEO."
Mm.
So, you know me, I'm like, "Then why do we got a website?" Like, that's like saying we have a stove, we just don't ever cook dinner on it, but it's there in
Exactly.
case somebody accidentally falls on a hot burner.
I always say, do you ever change the trucks on your fleet or change the oil on your fleet?
Yeah,
Because that's an asset too, right? It's a capital asset. Your website's no different. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if some guys have their SEO in a different line on their P&L and not under marketing because it's a necessity now. You have to have a website and you have to maintain it just
Well,
like
and I
you
think it's also a
I'll shift that out of our
misconception.
budget. I'll shift that right out of that marketing budget.
I think people think, okay, when I build the website, I build the SEO, I set it and forget it. Like you don't have to redo it. They don't get that it's an ongoing maintenance. It has to be
I mean,
massaged and
it's a
worked,
it's a thing. Like
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
whole thing. In contractors we don't, and it's I hope y'all are listening to what we're telling you right now, because I have to preach this and I don't really need to be. I'm kind of like that associate pastor at your church. Like I'm good enough to tell you a little bit, but I really don't need to be bringing the whole message. Because like I really but I've
Way to say
again
you're from the South without saying you're from the
I'm
South.
sorry, from the deep south, yes. But I want to say even people like me, so I'm not a digital expert, but I do know some things about these particular things, and that is you are missing the boat without SEO.
Yeah,
Period.
yeah.
Like you never even got in the boat. And everybody else is already way ahead of you. And so SEO must come that I think it has to come before you start getting fancy with the paid ads.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And don't underestimate it.
so keep this in the back of your mind as you're listening to this. So SEO is always is currently, right? We don't know what's going to happen next year, but
Sure.
currently, and it has been year after year after year, and even some years this surprises us. I mean, Ryan and I have conversations. We're like, man, is Google just going to be all paid next year and no SEO?
Yeah.
Um, they'll sell anything, right? So SEO for our clients is always the highest quantity and the highest quality lead generator every year, hands down, without a doubt. Now, this is making an assumption that you've been doing SEO with a good vendor for some period of time and you're actually getting good results. But it's always going to be the highest, which is funny because Crystal, like you were mentioning, you were kind of going down the page, right? Local service ads, pay per click, Google Maps, which Google Maps is organic, and then we get to the rest of organic. So people assume, oh, I just want to be at the top of the page. Well, your more educated buyers, your more educated clients are skipping past those paid ads because they know that they're paid. They're going down to look at reviews, and then they're going down to the organic to kind of see, okay, cool, I saw this person 3 times, great. Now I'm going to click here. And that's why a lot of times with pay per click, especially over the last few years, the quality of that lead has decreased. So it's
Mhm.
not as good as it used to be because people, more educated users, are catching on to it.
When
So,
they're kind of afraid of an ad. Ad has
yeah,
negative
I mean,
connotations.
Exactly. We all are, as a society, we're conditioned to be afraid of an ad. Like people are paying to get in front of you, whether it's something I want or not. And it's just not the case. Google's made it way more relevant to the search that's actually being performed than it ever used to be. But the whole rest of the population doesn't know that. We know that because we're in the industry. But there's also an argument, and I agree with that 100%, that organic is always going to be the primary revenue driver, but it's going to be with your planned services, not your emergency services. Your
Yeah.
emergency services are going to win at the top at the paid area 9 times out of 10 because people need someone there now. So I'm
Mhm.
going to click on my mobile, I'm going to click on my paid ad, and it's going to get tied to the PPC campaign, your service titan, or whatever you use, and you go out there and you do a pitch and you give them good, better, and best, and they say, whoa, let me get some quotes, right? Like most any homeowner does, right?
Yeah.
And now then your organic now starts coming into play because you need to stay in as an option as they look at A, B, and C competitors and what they would recommend you do, that homeowner do. Also, so your SEO is super important in that space, but also we're going to be retargeting them as they go through that process, right? So paid and SEO working together in this situation to capitalize an emergency based lead to turn it into a planned service, right? Which is 9 times out of 10 going to happen on organic listing, whether it's a map listing or below. So they're all important. None of them are more important than the other. It's just important that you do something at every spot.
Yeah. So okay, let's get down, Emily, into the like, what is a branded campaign?
Sure. So, and you mentioned at the very beginning of the call, Crystal, like w- contractors, they think in their mind to have a good ad, we have to have a call to action. I mean, they even think on their vehicle wraps, they have to have a call to action on their vehicle wraps. But, you can run branded campaigns for your digital strategy. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what do brand campaigns look like?
And what does that really mean to a
So it
contractor?
may not have to be a $79 service tune up. It's what is it?
Well, it's both. I mean, you guys kind of posed a question about, whether or not we run them concurrently or you do service ads and you do a branding message. Both, always. I mean, it's so a $79 AC tune-up ad in front of a homeowner that's on the denverpost.com or whatever your local newspaper.com is. And that $79 AC special banner ad is in front of them. The chances of them clicking on that and actually capitalizing on it's pretty low. That's not what banner ads are for. It's
Right.
designed to put that logo, the color scheme, and the overall marketing impression in front of them, whether it says $79 or been serving your market for over 100 years. It doesn't matter what it says. It's all about branding consistency, the logo, the color scheme. Now, there is something that separates those two ads apart, right? You're absolutely right in saying that the $79 is a service ad, and the one that says been servicing the Denver metro area for over 150 years, let us do your house too, is purely a brand message, right?
Mhm.
And so one is going to be targeted very differently. The branded message is going to be a general blanket target towards all homeowners in the Denver metro area.
Right, top of the funnel.
The service ad is going to be targeted to the same population that have shown intention of getting a service that that customer or that home service business offers. So they work together, but it's always kind of building brand. Nobody clicks on banner ads on purpose. Most of the time, it's a fat finger click and it's an accident.
Straight up bounce right off.
And it's something
Well,
so amazing, like a free night or an Aspen, something crazy. You got to have it. I'm going to right click it. I'm going to open in another tab, right? And so people just don't click on ads. And the point is just
well,
brand,
especially not for air conditioners.
right?
You know?
Yeah, not an Aspen is a lot better than a backflow preventer.
And it's not necessarily about what makes up a branding campaign. It's about how consistent are you willing to be for how long. And
Mm.
so branding are long-term plays. Branding campaigns are long-term plays, just like SEO is a marathon-based campaign, right? SEO, depending on where you're right
My
now,
language, Ryan.
6 to 24 months to get you on the first page for a super competitive keyword. Well, guess what? To build brand affinity from the infancy stages is going to take 6 to 24 months to get you there anyway. So SEO and branding campaigns a lot of times work hand in hand, and you'll start seeing your SEO ROI improve exponentially towards the latter half of a branding campaign because it starts to drive more traffic to the website. So it's a long term play, but the return, much like SEO, is exponential. The opportunity value that you earn with a new client that comes off a branding campaign is at least 10 times that of somebody that's never heard of you, that just hired you off the cuff off a super emergency based click, and you got in there and did it.
So your branding, so let's use these banner ads. So let's say I am a partner with my radio station. They're like, oh, you get banner ads as a part of your radio ad. And so you get these banner ads. I always like to just put a branding play up there,
Mhm.
like, 7 a.m., 7 p.m., 7 days a week, no overtime charges, kind of something like that. Where should we direct those ads? So if someone does click on those ads, do you think it should go to a homepage, to the landing page, to an offers page? What do you think?
It depends on what the message is. I think if it's just a general message, like like a branding offer, like, or a branding message, like go back to 100 years in Denver, I'd probably just land them on the homepage, because we build sites to be conversion centric, right? So they have anywhere I send them. It doesn't matter if it's an interior page, the home page, the contact page. It doesn't matter. There's going to be somewhere where they can convert. I need to give them a place where it's going to be the most aesthetically pleasing. And
Mhm.
9 times out of 10, that's going to be the homepage
Homepage.
or the About Us page. Yeah.
That's a good point.
I love those aesthetics. So
Well, and this is the thing too. Clients, contractors, they worry way more about the aesthetics than they do about the SEO strategy. We'll ask
yeah.
42 questions about the color of a bar across the middle of the page, but then we won't even ask questions about SEO. And
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, aren't they missing two cities that you're trying to optimize? And they're like, oh yeah. I'm like, well, thank God we got that green bar across the middle. I mean, that's gonna be so passionate,
Right.
powerful for our lead
Well, I
conversion.
think that's
You know,
that's fair for them. I think that's fair for them to not ask questions because it's a mystery. I mean, just full transparency, it's a mystery to me sometimes. I'm in the industry, but it's just moving. And like we talk about, like, virtual assistants. How is that playing into SEO? How do we write copy to satiate those types of searches that are happening on Alexa and her friend? I won't say it because my computer will go
we're
off.
not
But
trying to turn it on. Yeah.
yeah, we don't need to bring her into this
Our
conversation.
friend.
But it is an ever moving target, and to expect these guys to actually understand and to dissect the SEO and say, well, why are my title tags different on every single page?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen very often, and when it does, I'm like, I just
Yeah.
I can't
Game
wait
on.
to get on with you, because
Well,
I'm
I
trying
tell them to get off
to
Google.
help these guys, and those are the
I'm going to, if one of my clients starts talking to the digital provider about that, I start texting them on the side and say, "Get off of Google," because I know you did not know this terminology to use. But no, those are, so that's kind of a, I know that seems so simplistic, but I think as contractors, we're all just trying to understand the overall strategy, and not complicating, not over making it overly complicated. And so, I know one thing, there's a couple of new, with our CRMs, there's these different opportunities to track every single campaign and every single lead. And I'll be honest, like those types of services make me a little nervous, just because I'm not even sure the average contractor knows what to do with that
Mhm.
information.
Sure.
And so I think there is validity. And this is going to sound very backwards. There is a certain semblance of truth that comes from, this is too much information for a contractor to even comprehend.
Yeah.
You don't really, I don't think most contractors go into the home and start educating the inner workings of a heating and air conditioning unit. You don't, right? Because the homeowner only cares about how my electric bill runs, how do I work my thermostat, when should I change my filter, keeping it clean of debris on the outside, simple caretaking strategy. So then when you overcomplicate it with all of these, like, here's how to pull and clean your condenser coil and coil cleaner and leak diary, they're like, timeout. Don't I pay you to do
My
this?
eyes have glazed over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you started talking about that and saying, well, hey, you probably have a leak, they're gonna say, well, come out here and fix it. Like, so I kind of worry that we're teaching contractors to be too down in the weeds when we really don't know what to do with that information, versus equipping them to have good conversations. What can I bring to the table as the contractor to have healthy conversation where I'm not getting my Texas comes out, getting when I'm not getting
Getting taken advantage
thank you,
of.
Emily, yes, when that's not happening, and when I'm also smart enough to let my vendor partner know that I'm not just letting you run wild. Like, I do want there to be a sense of accountability and responsibility.
Yeah, I think and Stephen, you might have some more to add to this too. But I think for me, it's like we're damned if we do, if we damned if we don't. If we
Yeah.
Yeah.
provide too much information, and if we don't provide the full scope like we did before, he's like, "Well, where's that information?"
Yeah.
So we
Well,
have the
and that
business
changes from
owners.
client to client. Yeah.
It
Yes.
is, but we're going to give the same to everybody because we just don't. We can't give a different report. Like, we can, but we got to give them everything, right? Because we don't want to say that we didn't give you the information. But what we do is we'll provide an executive summary at the top of the report that gives you the KPIs that you care about. What is the
Mm.
cost per lead? How much revenue? What is your return? Whatever it is that's most important to you, we'll highlight those at the top of the report. And me and my team will talk about that with you, make a point to talk about that with you when we're on calls with you. Should you have a marketing manager now wants to also look at the data that's on page 2 through 10, right? And so we want to provide all the information, but we get it. Like, so yeah, the homeowner is going to glaze over when you start talking about condenser coils, but and she may not understand what you're talking about, but her husband might, and he might want to look at that data later on that evening. So you better provide it to him because you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. You got to be clear.
So when your digital vendor gives you this chunk of information, all of these things, it's more about understanding what the information is and why it is being provided to you. So what is a click and why does it matter? What is an impression and why does it matter? What is my cost per lead and what should it be? And that way you at least have established for yourself some markers, some indicators. Then each quarter when you meet, or each month when you meet with them, you can kind of start developing, like, okay, this is why this matters. Instead, you sit over there, like Emily said, with your eyes glazed over. And at the end, you're like, well, I don't know. My digital vendor don't tell me anything. And I'm like, no, sir, that is not the truth.
Or even giving it enough time, like you said, 6 to 24 months to let some things actually happen and to be able to look and analyze so that you can pivot and adjust some things.
Right. And I get too that's a big time of a chunk of time for them to fork up a bunch of money and be patient for it, though.
Sure.
So we make a really strong push to make sure we're meeting with them every 2 weeks to kind of hold their hand, for lack of better words, give
Mhm.
them the views into what we're doing. Yeah, we might be at only a 2-to-1 return on investment, but we're aiming towards a 7-to-1, and we're trending in the right direction. This leads to that. I want to kind of go back also to the client that takes the time to understand what verbiage means, like what is a click through rate, why does that matter, that kind of stuff. Those are the campaigns that perform the best, right? The ones that actually take the time to understand the basics. The ones that give me a budget and say I'll talk to you in 6 months, those are the ones that don't do well. It hits the fan,
Right.
right? And because I need to know what's going on the front line, I
Yeah,
need to
the
know.
interactions, yes.
Yes. And I need a temperature gauge from the client. So It's really important, even if they don't take the time to understand the verbiage. If they just show up for those calls every 2 weeks, the campaign's going to flourish. It's going to perform better than those that don't show up. You can't just let marketing go and
I
let.
tell businesses too, if it's not you, let's say you're much more the operations guy, like you're out here focused on equipment acquisition and buying new trucks, then put someone that you trust in charge of communicating and giving a temperature, a pulse on the business. Because again, you guys are flying blind. I mean, you can see what you see, but it's all numbers and clicks and impressions and all these things. You need somebody to go, oh, well, you know what? Our average ticket tanked, or I've got 5 new people on my team, or my all my CSRs were out with COVID, or
Mhm.
whatever. And you're like, oh, that explains this dip,
Right.
Yeah,
not
yeah.
what the heck happened right here.
Mhm.
Right.
Or just being able to give good advice
Right. Yeah.
is just so important.
And the team that comes on board that has woefully bad CSR issues that I find out 3 months into the campaign, the guy that met with me every 2 weeks leading up to that 90-day point is much easier for me to come to and say, your CSR team sucks. And
Mhm.
than the guy that never met with me, right? Because I'm gonna
Yeah.
come in here and meet with him and tell him that a CSR team sucks and he's never talked to me, he's gonna be super pissed,
Yeah.
But it's the
Hey,
fact
your
of the matter
daughter that's a CSR, yeah, she's not good.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
we
it's just
care.
easier to blame you.
Yeah,
So,
Right.
yeah.
We're gonna work and we care and we're gonna tell you, like, I mean, Steven says it all the time, like ego at the door, right? Like we don't have time to worry about egos. We're going to give you the data straight. And if it's on your end that you're not meeting your end of the bargain, we're going to let you know. But we're also going to let you know how we can help better support you.
Sure.
You do these few fixes, and we'll let you know how we're trending. The weeks after that. That way, you can see the improvement plan yourself. So,
One little takeaway I think that I want to make sure I reiterate here. And it's very simple. I'm sure you guys are like, "Oh my gosh, that's super basic." If you are running these ads, I get this all the time. If you are running with your radio station or your TV station or some newspaper or local magazine and they're giving you these digital banner ads, don't try to be fancy. Just
mm,
get a nice clean logo up there that directs to your homepage. Make sure that your homepage on your website looks nice and clean. There's an easy schedule, an easy call, and just run that and just never look back for a while. Just sit on that. I'm gonna from now on, Lemon Seed Marketing is gonna hand out marketing straight jackets,
yeah,
and you have to put one on for six
yeah, yeah,
months.
yeah,
Because the reason I say that is I get this a lot, like, oh my gosh, I get these quote unquote, we all know there's nothing free, but these complimentary or these free banner ads. And so one thing that people I think can really walk away with from this is don't overcomplicate that by trying to make them super fancy. Like,
mhm,
let's run branding on those and just make sure they're easy to read, clear to click through, and just build that authority and that top of mind awareness in your market. And that's a much better long-term strategy in general.
yeah.
That's gonna have longevity. It's got good shelf life. You don't have to worry about it as much, especially those of you that are trying to manage those things yourself,
Mhm.
without using an agency like Lemon Seed that's on the consulting side. So just
Yeah.
something I wanted to be very specific about there.
Yeah, and those that don't have like graphic design capability, like how do I even do that? Like most of these vendors, like your radio station, TV station, will have creative services for you, and we'll
I
just
mean, they'll do something.
the rep will
Yeah.
work with you about, okay, what is your slogan, and they'll build the ad for you. So don't let that deter you, like the technicality of that, having to build a display. What does that even mean? That sounds like Spanish to me right now. No, just tell them, just work with you, that provider. They'll be able to build those for you. We build banner ads on behalf of our clients. It's a very simple process.
Mhm.
uh, yeah, but I
Easy
agree.
to do. Steven, let
Yeah.
me ask you a question. If I were to say, "Hey, this is a brand new contractor that's actually saved up money and he's ready to get started with digital," what advice would you give him?
Oh man. So it depends. So if it's a brand new company that has never existed in a market.
Right, like he just decided, "You know what? I've worked for somebody else for a long time. I'm gonna start my own business."
Got it. So let's operate under the assumption that it's a small budget, right? A small monthly budget that he wants to go after. I mean, depending on the market, right? If it's Dallas, it's going to be a little different than it's, a
Sure.
medium or small size market. But here's what I would do. Having owned a couple different companies and knowing what that's like and knowing what the startup process feels like and understanding the digital side of things, if I had like $1,000 a month and I was maxed out, I would actually put a lot of that towards branded stuff, very specifically in the couple neighborhoods that I really know that I want to work in, Then I would go and I would get inside their local, like Nextdoor and Facebook pages or Facebook community groups. And I would work my ass off every night to go in there and be of value and be of service to those communities and those groups. And then what's going to happen is you're going to start to get the one on one direct lead gen from those types of people. And then in the background, what's going to start happening is you're going to start to show branding ads to people all within those same neighborhoods and all within those, zip codes, neighborhoods, whatever it's going to be. Then when you start doing jobs in those neighborhoods, make sure you got a decent wrap on your truck or your van, roll up into the neighborhood. Now you're going to be so concentrated that a lot of the neighbors are going to see you every couple days or every couple weeks. So now they're going to start asking their neighbors, or they're going to start going into the groups like, oh man, who's this, absolute air conditioning that keeps going in the neighborhood? Throw up some yard signs, throw up some door hangers a couple ways, either side of what you're doing. And then let the budget itself kind of play out that way. That's one thing that I really would do that I think people miss when it comes to branding and when you're new. The other thing I would do, and there's a reason why I didn't say this first, but I would get signed up on Google local service ads because it's pretty much your lowest cost, highest quality paid lead. The reason why I didn't necessarily say put as much budget as you can there first is that you need to at least build up some reviews on Google before Google will really start to show you in that rotation of local service ads. So get some business coming in the door, stay laser focused in, a couple neighborhoods, a couple zip codes, something like that. Throw a little bit of money at branding. Once you get some reviews, get signed up on Google local service ads, and then push as much budget as you can there, because if you're making money off each lead, you can continue reinvesting it. And then I would go somewhere in that mix. Right now, I know I kind of left out build a website and stuff like that, but I did it based on what's that?
Common thoughts there. We got to have a website.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. Common thoughts. And I also did it based on, we get calls from these people every week, right? I mean, I can't tell you how many people I'm coaching doing stuff like this. And a lot of the ones that do things this way end up coming back in a year or two. I'll talk to them once a quarter. They come back in 2 years and they're like, okay, I'm ready. I got 5 grand or 10 grand a month in budget. I've got 340 Google reviews and a 5-star rating, and now I'm ready to grow. I got one more truck, et cetera, et cetera. But
Right, like, let's
don't
go.
overthink it. Like there's not this silver bullet out there. Like Ryan mentioned, lead ads on social media. Like, yeah, it just doesn't really work the way that it used to.
Let me flip this around on you.
Yeah,
So what if I'm a 15, $10 million company and I'm really trying to push? I'm really wanting to push. Now I know I do have to give y'all this little caveat. It is very hard to generalize these things
Sure,
because
for sure.
market
yeah,
changes and all of that. But overall, I'm a $10 million company that's spending pretty aggressive on marketing. I'm there. What do you think those big companies are missing a lot of times with their digital side?
branding. They're missing branding. They're
They
trying to do
skipped it.
everything. Yeah, they grew. Here's what most of them. If you're a 10 to 15 million dollar company right now, and you've grown a lot of that in the last, call it 5 to 7, 8 years, you probably grew a lot on pay per click, right? Because
Mhm.
5, 6 years ago it worked well. We call it pay per click crack because you get hooked on it, and that's your number one lead source. And then you got to keep spending more and more and more, and it gets more competitive. And then before you know it, you're negative. You're losing money to run jobs, and you can't recover from it. And then that's
Right.
when we get the call from people saying, "Oh, my pay per click cost per lead is way too high." I'm like, "Yeah, that's just we do all the research. That's what it is in the market. Your agency's actually doing a good job." So they missed the boat on branding, because rewind, everything runs in patterns, right? Think about like the 90s when we had some of the biggest brands that just blew up. Well, what did they do? They bought every TV ad in their geographic area, and they ran them every single day, every single night, and they went from 5 million to 50 million in 10 years. They branded the hell out of it. And then when pay per click came along, they invested a lot and they grabbed it there. But with branding now, it's even easier because now we can target where people are seeing your brand. We can target, YouTube pre-roll ads in certain zip codes, and then only show it to people in that zip code based on lifestyle and stuff like that. Do they own their house or do they rent it? We don't really care about renters that much, right? We only want to show it to
Right.
people that own their house. So
Owner occupied.
yeah, you got to do the branding. you have to do something with it, and then just go down the line, right? Like SEO, which is your Google Maps and your organic. Then you get Google local service ads. Then you get pay per click, and then you start getting into some of the other little ancillary fun stuff. But you gotta you gotta be doing some branding.
Yeah, don't skip it. They skip that, a lot of us skip it because you're right. You just get like so hungry for those bottom of the funnel
Mhm.
Yeah,
people and you're just like grabbing them all up because you can.
Yeah.
Right.
You can.
yeah,
Most of the time you can. You can outspend the majority of your competition when you're that big and you just kind of take your eye off the ball a little bit. And then all of a sudden anybody comes into your market and they will slowly but surely creep up on you. And you're like, where did they come from? Well, it's because they were like the tortoise and the hare. They were just slowly but surely
Mhm.
keeping that branding
yeah.
alive. Well,
Well,
I
and
know
here's
that. Yeah,
Crystal, let me add one really
please
quick
go ahead.
last
No,
thing
no,
about
you're good.
branding. So, branding, besides building top of the funnel and getting more lead gen and creating more revenue for the business, hot topic right now, right? All the private equity money, everybody's selling or thinking about selling. If you brand properly, your company becomes more valuable.
It
Oh, for
does a
sure.
lot more lucrative.
Yeah.
I mean, and we cannot like, yeah, when I get clients, they'll send in like a client intake form for me to kind of review before our call so that we can talk, openly about some things. And I'll look on there. And as soon as I like just go look at just their, what I call it customer facing collateral. When I go look at those things, I'm automatically like, oh, this is going to be a challenge. Or I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, sign me up.
Let's
Let's
go.
go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cause I'm like, this is such a good brand and they've done such a good job. Or it's like, oh man, like we haven't changed, we haven't updated ourselves since 1985 and we need to make some changes. And like, how am I going to tell this client that we need to change their brand and it's their baby? And like, you just start, and I can just tell, like, you haven't done anything with this brand anyway. So what's it going to matter if we change it, because they associate that with van wraps. Well, my vans are wrapped. You're right. Too bad no one has any emotional or relationship connection with that brand. They just know that they see it in their neighborhood, and so you got to kind of marry the two together. But
Absolutely. And I want to add too that a lot of times these paid strategies give us the ability to kind of ebb and flow lead gen, right? We need more leads, we need less leads. So we use paid to kind of ebb and flow that. And that's because these paid campaigns don't carry a lot of momentum, right? They get going really quickly and they perform really quickly. But if you take your hands off of the wheel, they fizzle super
mhm,
fast, right? They're not doing anything. A good branded campaign that's actually taken the time to build brand affinity has got so much momentum that you can't, sometimes all you got to do is maintain it from there on out.
mhm,
So if you spend the 2 years to build brand affinity, you're going to spend less in 2 years then on than you are for the first 2 years. It's going to take you to try to chase that same number running paid campaigns that fizzle out over and over and over. So you always be branding. I wish we had like an ABB shirt or something
yeah,
like
that's what we need.
Always be
Always be
branding. That's right.
yes,
That's right.
amen to that. Well, I know I've captured lots of nuggets. Like I have written, I don't normally write this many notes. Emily's probably like, "What is Crystal doing over
Yeah.
there?" But I wrote like even some things I want to go check for our own clients. Like, you know
Mhm.
what? Let me go check. Are my clients doing this? Or heck, am I doing this? And things like that. So I know that this has been a lot of information, and I think it's been a very appropriate level of explanation to where
Sure.
contractors
Yeah.
that are listening, and even if you're not a home service contractor, good digital tactics and strategy is just good digital strategy. It just so happens that we like to talk condensers and backflow preventers, but for the most part, this is just a good strategy all the way together. So, Stephen, tell us real quick, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out to Wit, how did they go about doing that?
Yeah. So just go to the website, witdelivers.com. You can fill out the contact form. There's also like a free little analysis tool on the site, or you can just email us directly at ask at witdelivers.com.
Got it.
Great.
Perfect.
Well, and I know we'll link in the show notes a link where listeners could schedule a call with you guys and get a 12-month strategy of how they could develop this digital plan and where to even get started. You guys provided us a ton of information, definitely experts in this space. And so thank you for sharing all of this. And so, yeah, this was great. I
Oh, I
wrote a
thought
lot
it
of
was
notes
great.
too. Yeah.
So on the freebie, if you want the freebie that's coming from Wit Digital, you can just click on the link that we've provided to schedule that. Just a 12-month strategy, right, Stephen? Isn't that what you said?
Yeah, the shortest way that I can put this is we're going to give you exactly what we build for our clients when they come on board. So we're going to do demographic and geographic research in your area based on your budget, based on your growth goals, And then we're going to plan out your marketing budget basically per line item per month as the year changes. So marketing budgets especially for paid should not just be the same every month forever. They should ebb and flow based on Google search volume trends, based on your market, based on what services you offer, and a lot of other stuff. So it's a lot. You'll get a lot of
Yeah.
cool stuff out of it.
For sure. For
Awesome.
sure.
That'll be great. Well, thank you so much for giving that to the listeners. So
Yep.
Yeah.
make sure you take advantage of that. It's pretty
Oh,
cool.
absolutely. That's great. Well, thank you for listening to another episode of From the Yellow Chair. If you like this episode, please leave us a review, share it with a friend, and as always, thanks for sipping some lemonade.
With us and the Wit team today. All right, guys. See you later.